the representative for the European Forum for Public Interest Media. You're going to be talking about IFPIM. Over to you. Thanks very much. So first of all, big thanks to CFI for organizing the forum. It's been enthusing for me, everything I've heard today. And thank you very much for giving me a platform to talk about this new institution and the fund there too. So we're a multilateral partnership, a fund for supporting intermediary and low-revenue company media coverage. Now, the Secretary General of the UN was talking about an extinction of independent media in developing countries. He made a contribution, therefore, to this fund, given the economic problems in the backdrop. For many years, independent journalism has been supported, but there are significant pressure coming to bear to push them to one side. So this mission, this fund, should increase funds made available to independent media in low and medium income countries, investing in solutions, long-term solutions, to find sustainable methods to fund independent media. So where do things stand with our new institution, and how do we do things? Before I talk about that, one or two central features about our DNA. First, we're a North-South partnership. You may have seen, if you look into the finer detail, within our governance structure, we have a majority representation of the areas we're working: Latin America, Asia Pacific, Sub-Saharan Africa, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. But the important point is that we're an institution which is multilateral, but also independent. Now, it may seem a contradiction in terms, but our government structure is such that all the decisions that are taken, bearing in mind where we're pumping money and the media that we're supporting, all those decisions are taken irrespective of people who hold the purse strings. We have a board of directors that is independent, therefore, co-chaired by the last year's Nobel Prize winner for peace and a BBC former top executive, and also he worked for the New York Times. So we work hand in glove with others because there are stakeholders that do fabulous work in the various areas that we work in. CFI is a case in point, but there are others. So our model is as collaborative as possible so that we can build on what currently exists. So where do things stand now? We've launched our idea. This was 4 or 5 years back. Comments off mic.
Pardon. Je vais reprendre un peu plus doucement. Donc.
Perhaps I'll tell you then where things stand in terms of our progress. We launched this a few years back. So today we have financial support, political support, quite considerably, by the way. Thus far, 50 million euros has been raised for the 2 first years of the life of the fund. Now, this support was announced by international leaders. UN Secretary General is an example, but also American support from the president's support. President Macron expressed his support as well as other leaders in the countries we'll be working in. We also officially launched the first operational phase of our international fund. That 2 months ago, the announcement was made in the UN for International Press Freedom Day. At that occasion, the 40 countries we named where we'll be working. You'll have a look at the exhaustive list on our webpage. And we also announced a certain number of strategic priorities, which really shed light on where the money will be channeled. We've also called for candidatures last year. It's a modest-sized project plan for working in a dozen or so countries. So we're calling for monies. 3 million euros will be made available for those dozen or so projects. So how are we going to be using these monies? How are we going to work with the media that we support in our partnership framework to make them more robust financially? First, there was a consultancy phase. It was very long. And we came to the conclusion that we need call support funding approach so we can fund all line items over the long term. And then there'll be other points about capacity building and editorial approaches. Anyway, we'll be mobilizing on those fronts. We're going to be doing it over 3 particular targets. The first, we're going to be offering financial support to independent media, public interest media that play a crucial role in the societies where they are embedded for accountability or governmental accountability, providing information to citizens, and that are combating a risk of being wiped off the map for financial reasons or because they're being captured by vested interest, economic, political. So this is very important factors. Independent media play an important role supporting democracy and their respective countries' developments. They need to be safeguarded. The second target, providing financial support to give room for maneuver for innovation so that new approaches can be explored by these organizations over a variety of fields, technology usage, for example, or for new format or new contents, a new way of interacting with one's public. It could also be business models or revenue or income sources. So that's the second target, second strategic axis. Third strategic axis, which goes to the heart of who we are and which we think is paramount. We're going to be providing support to a number of undertakings, initiatives designed to resolve more long-term problems. So they're going to be going over and beyond one single outfit. We're looking at the market structure as a whole. So in respect to that, we're going to be offering support to new financing models for journalism, the International Fund for Journalism. There's a fund that is being put together as we speak in Sierra Leone. It's an independent fund with financial sponsors such as us, states and international stakeholders. We'll be working on regulations for media platforms and how they interact with the media fabric. We'll be looking at the advertising market, advertising particular done by the government, how influential and how much control does that exert on independent media players. So that's the third developmental approach. Now, we're currently recruiting the teams that will be staffing the 4 major areas where we show a presence, and that will be responsible for piloting, for steering, for making decisions about the allocation of the apportioning of the various monies. Now, it could be that some of you are now asking yourself, well, how can we get money? How can we talk to my fund to try and establish where the projects or the vision that you have for your media outlet is in phase, is in sync with our strategic targets? So perhaps I can tell you a bit more about that particular point. Now, as I said, currently we're in the beginnings of our process, but we want to incrementally increase funding and broaden the scope of our geographical coverage. We're going to be active in about 40 or so countries. The list will be on the website, as I said a moment ago. And we're going to be offering funding for public interest media outlets. How do we identify them, though? There are 3 approaches here. Now, there'll be some call for proposals on topics or specific geographical areas. Also, a direct commitment, proactive, assertive, with the media fabric in those countries. We're going to be interacting with journalist associations, media outlets, civil society organizations, basically financial sponsors for media outlets in those independent individual countries. Then, third, recommendations to our partners like CFI or others that are possibly in the auditorium today. Lastly, our website, ifpim.org. So if you're interested, if you want to manifest your interest, express your interest for a conversation or possibly funding from our part, then even today, You can express an interest. It's very quick to do. 2 or 3 questions need to be answered, and this will help us come back to you and include the name of your organization in the pipeline, the list of potential partners that we will have. I think I've reached my 10-minute mark, so I'll stop at this point. But please, get in touch with us through our website, and we'll do our utmost to answer very quickly. As you'll understand, right at the beginning of this outfit's life, so we have limited resources faced with the vast questions that are dangling in all the areas that you work in. Thanks very much for your attention.
Merci, Pierrick Judeaux.
Thanks very much, Pierrick Judeaux, and well done, to be honest.